Welcome to Easy English Talks podcast.
If you're new to this podcast, let me tell you a little about what we do. Every day we share stories and real-life conversations to help you practice listening and speaking. You'll learn useful vocabulary, hear natural expressions, and understand how English is used in daily life. This episode is designed for learners at the B1 to B2 level who want to become more confident and fluent. Today I want to share a story about an experience that taught me an important lesson. I was on my way to a local market to buy some fresh vegetables for dinner. The afternoon was busy, and people were moving in all directions. While waiting at the counter, I noticed an elderly man named Daniel struggling to carry a heavy bag of rice. Without thinking much, I stepped forward and offered to help him. He smiled warmly and said, "Thank you, young lady." I did not expect someone to stop and help me today. We walked together toward his car, and during that short walk, Daniel shared a little about his life. He told me that he had been married for more than 40 years, and his wife loved cooking traditional meals at home. They often invited neighbors for dinner because they believed sharing food was a way to build strong relationships. Listening to his story made me realize how small acts of kindness can create meaningful connections between people. After helping him load the bag into his car, he offered me a simple piece of advice. He said, "Always take time to notice the people around you. Everyone carries something heavy, even if you cannot see it." That sentence stayed in my mind. It reminded me that communication is not only about speaking, it's also about noticing, listening, and caring for others. Now let me ask you, have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return? How did it make you feel? Think about a time when a stranger smiled at you or said something kind. Did it change your day in any way? Often these small moments have a bigger impact than we realize. Later that evening, I shared Daniel's story with my neighbor Emma. She told me about a similar experience at a bus stop. One rainy morning, she saw a young mother struggling with grocery bags while holding her little boy's hand. Emma offered to hold the umbrella for her so she could manage the bags more easily. The mother thanked her and said it was rare to meet people who still cared about such small things. Stories like these remind us that kindness doesn't require wealth or power. It only requires attention and a willing heart. In English, there's a phrase, "A little help goes a long way." It means that even a small action can have a big effect. When we practice English, we often focus only on words and grammar, but fluency is also about expressing emotions and building connections, just like in these stories. Try using phrases such as, "Can I help you with that?" or "Would you like some assistance?" They are polite, natural, and show that you care. As you listen to this episode, repeat some of these sentences out loud. Imagine yourself in these situations, helping an elderly man, supporting a neighbor, or assisting a parent at a bus stop. Practice saying, "Can I give you a hand?" or "Let me help you with this." These are real-life sentences that native speakers use every day. Tomorrow, when you go outside, look for a chance to use one of these phrases. Maybe you're at a shop and someone drops a bag. Maybe you see someone trying to open a door while carrying something heavy. A simple English sentence can start a real conversation and improve your confidence. The next day I had another chance to practice this. I went to a bakery early in the morning to buy fresh bread. The shop was crowded and everyone seemed in a hurry. While waiting in line, I noticed a woman named Sarah holding her toddler with one hand and balancing a bag in the other. I smiled and said, "Would you like me to hold the bag for you?" She looked relieved and replied, "Oh yes, thank you so much." It was a small thing, but it made her morning easier. We started talking while waiting. Sarah told me that she and her husband had just moved to the city because of his new job. They were still adjusting to the busy lifestyle, and finding friendly people gave them comfort. She said, "Sometimes a kind word from a stranger makes the whole day feel lighter." That conversation reminded me how powerful a simple gesture and a few words can be in building trust and friendliness, even between strangers. You see, you don't need long, complicated sentences. Short, kind phrases are often the most effective. For example, you can say, "Do you need any help?" Or "I can carry this for you if you like." These are easy to remember and very natural. Later that afternoon, I visited my new friend Daniel again. His wife Helen invited me for tea in their garden. She shared a story about the early days of their marriage. When they moved into their first home, neighbors helped them set up everything. One neighbor even brought them homemade soup on their first evening because they were too tired to cook. Helen said, "That simple act made us feel at home." Hearing stories like this reminded me how kindness spreads. When someone does something good for you, you often feel like doing something good for someone else. And that's also true in English learning. Language is not only about vocabulary and grammar, it is a bridge between people. The more you use it in real situations, the more confident you become. So when you ask someone, "Can I help you?" or "Is everything okay?" you're not only practicing English, you're creating a positive moment. One more story. My neighbor James is a father of two, and he often helps people in our community without expecting anything in return. Last week, he saw an elderly woman waiting at the bus stop with heavy grocery bags. It was a hot day, and she looked tired. James offered to carry her bags to her apartment just across the street. At first, the woman was surprised, but then she smiled and said, "Thank you. People like you make this city feel like a real home." These examples may sound simple, but they show how real conversations begin. A few kind words can open the door to stories, friendships, and better English practice. So here's my challenge for you. Think of one simple phrase you can use today. Will it be, "Do you want me to hold this?" Or "Can I give you a hand?" Repeat it a few times. Say it clearly with a smile in your voice. This is how you build natural fluency. Yesterday evening, I had another interesting experience at the community center near my home. Every Wednesday, people gather there to share ideas about how to improve the neighborhood. When I arrived, I saw a man named Robert arranging chairs for the meeting. He looked like he could use some help. So I said, "Would you like some help with that?" His face brightened immediately. He said, "That would be wonderful." "Thank you." We worked together, and as we moved chairs, we began talking about community life. Robert told me he has lived in the neighborhood for more than 20 years with his wife, Linda. They raised their 2 children here, and he believes strong neighborhoods start when people know each other. He said, "Many people stay inside their homes and don't talk to their neighbors anymore. But when we organize small events like this, we reconnect." That simple conversation while arranging chairs turned into a meaningful exchange about family life, memories, and the value of communication. When the meeting started, people began sharing their suggestions. Clara, one of the participants, talked about creating a weekend garden club where families could plant flowers and vegetables together. Another man, Stephen, suggested setting up a reading corner for children so parents could bring their kids and spend quality time there. As I listened, I realized these ideas weren't just about activities. They were about building a sense of togetherness. And during these moments, people used simple English expressions repeatedly. Phrases like, "That sounds like a good idea," or "I can help with that," or "When can we start?" These are the kinds of real phrases that make you sound natural in conversation. After the meeting, Clara came over to me and said, "I noticed you were helping Robert earlier. It was very kind of you." I smiled and replied it was no trouble at all. Helping each other is how communities grow. We talked about small acts like moving chairs or carrying a box, and how they create space for friendship. Clara shared that her husband repairs old bicycles for children in the neighborhood because not every family can buy a new one. It reminded me that kindness isn't always big or expensive. Sometimes it's about using what you already have to make someone else's life a little easier. On my way home, I stopped at a small grocery shop on the corner. Mr. Thomas, the shopkeeper, was helping Peter, a young man who had just moved into the area with his wife. Peter asked about the best time to buy fresh produce because he wanted to start cooking at home. I shared a tip. Early mornings usually have the freshest stock because deliveries come in before the shop opens. Peter thanked me, saying, "It is so nice to meet people who share useful tips. It makes settling into a new place much easier." We ended up talking a few more minutes about favorite easy-to-cook dishes and simple ingredients to keep at home. This is a key point for language learners. When you meet someone new, you don't need a long speech. Start with 1 or 2 helpful sentences. Ask something like, "Are you new here?" Or "Would you like to know where to find the best bakery?" These short questions often lead to longer conversations because people appreciate genuine interest. The next morning, I took the bus to visit a friend across town. An older gentleman, Mr. Harris, sat beside me. After a few minutes, he asked, "Do you know if this bus stops near the library?" I said, "Yes, it does. I'm getting off 2 stops after that. I can let you know when we get close." His eyes softened, and he said that would be very helpful. During the ride, we talked about reading habits. He mentioned that his wife borrows cookbooks from the library to try new recipes each week. I shared that I enjoy reading too, and we exchanged simple ideas to keep reading part of daily life, even when busy. When I got off the bus, I realized everyday travel situations give the best English practice. You don't need a classroom or a formal lesson. Practice with people around you on a bus, in a shop, at a market, or in a meeting. Each time your confidence grows a little. Later, I went for a walk in the park by the river. I met Anna and her husband David, sitting on a bench with a picnic basket. I asked, "Do you come here often?" Anna replied, "Yes, almost every weekend. It's our small way of spending quality time together after a busy week." We talked about simple outdoor activities for families. As David said, they sometimes bring extra sandwiches to share with anyone passing by, especially elderly people who walk alone. A small snack and a few minutes of friendly talk can make someone's afternoon better. These stories show something important. Natural English grows from polite offers, kind questions, and small acts of help. You can practice these patterns daily. See someone looking for a place? Ask, "Can I show you the way?" Someone carrying too much? Offer, "Shall I hold that for you?" These sentences aren't just correct, they create positive moments. The next weekend, I visited the local library to return books. I met Michael and Laura, a young couple signing up for their first library card. They asked how often people borrow books and if there were quiet corners for reading. I gave them a quick tour, pointing out the study area, children's section, and the small cafe. Michael said, "This place feels so welcoming. We moved here 2 months ago, and finding spots like this makes us feel more connected." Laura added, "It's not just about books. It's about having a place where people share time." Leaving the library, I reflected on everyday conversations. Many learners wait for a big event to practice English. But the truth is, opportunities are everywhere in helping someone carry something. Giving directions, sharing tips, or asking a simple question at a shop. On Sunday afternoon, I joined a community cleanup at the park. Families, couples, and teenagers were there with gloves and trash bags. Samuel came with his wife and children, saying these events teach kids about responsibility. While collecting trash, Samuel asked, "How long have you been part of this community?" I replied, "Almost 5 years." Events like this make it feel like home. We exchanged a few more lines about how keeping the environment clean also helps people feel proud of their neighborhood. During the cleanup, people used simple, warm English. "Could you pass me that bag?" Or "Thank you for picking that up." Nobody spoke perfectly. They communicated naturally. This is your goal. Not perfect grammar, but real connection. As the sun set, we shared water and snacks under the trees. Mrs. Brown, an older lady, shared how her husband used to organize similar activities. Keeping a place clean is like keeping relationships healthy. Small, regular care matters, I thought. What wise words. Learning English is the same. Small, consistent practice is more powerful than big, rare efforts. On my way home, I stopped at a bakery. Emily, the shop assistant, recognized me. "Nice to see you again. Did you enjoy the bread last time?" We laughed and talked for a few minutes. She told me her husband works at a farm supplying fresh eggs. These small exchanges deepen your connection to your community. Do you see the thread connecting all these moments? A polite question, a kind offer, or a short reply can start a chain of positive interaction. The more you use English this way, the more natural it becomes. Last Monday, I visited a hardware store for light bulbs and some tools. Mr. Carter, an older man, helped me find the right size. While searching, we talked about how people often buy wrong-size bulbs. He and his wife have run the store for over 30 years and enjoy helping new customers. Nearby, Andrew and Sophia looked at garden tools, and Andrew asked if I had experience planting flowers. I shared a story about roses I planted with a neighbor. Sophia said, "We want to make our entrance colorful but don't know where to start." I suggested easy care flowers like marigolds or daisies. They thanked me, and we left feeling like we had learned from each other. Later, I visited the community health center for a checkup. Mrs. Allen, the nurse, greeted me warmly. I spoke with Mark and his wife about regular checkups, he said. "We often delay small health matters, but if we make time, it's easier to stay healthy." These small conversations happen everywhere: waiting rooms, bus stops, or shops. The next morning, I met my neighbor Rachel on the stairway, carrying freshly baked bread. I said, "That smells amazing. Did you bake it yourself?" She laughed. "Yes, my husband helped this time. We bake together on weekends. It's a nice way to spend time." We exchanged simple recipes and tips. Later in the week at the post office, I helped Ethan fill out a form for his first package. He had just moved to the area with his wife for her teaching job. Said, "When people take a few minutes to guide you, a new place feels like home faster." These small conversations make a difference. On Thursday afternoon, I joined a clean water awareness event at the local park. Mr. and Mrs. Green, longtime residents, shared stories about how the river used to be cleaner and why they care for it now. While collecting bottles, a teenager named Daniel asked me about learning English. I said, "Start with simple questions. If you see someone doing something interesting, ask about it. People love to explain." He smiled. Maybe I'll try that next time. Confidence grows step by step, not all at once. That evening, I had dinner with a family friend named Olivia. She and her husband run a small home-based catering service. Over the meal, we talked about how they started their business during a difficult time and how small conversations with neighbors helped them get their first clients. Olivia said, "People remember kindness and honesty. We never promised too much. We just told them what we could do and did our best." That taught me something important. Even in business, everyday English matters. Phrases like, "Would you like to try this?" or "Can I prepare something special for you?" can make a big difference. On Friday, I went for a morning walk and saw an older man struggling to start his car. He looked frustrated. I asked, "Do you need any assistance?" He said, "Yes. Could you help me push it a little so I can check the battery?" I managed to move the car to a safer spot. He introduced himself as Mr. Lewis and said his wife was at home waiting for groceries. We laughed about how cars stop working at the worst times. He thanked me and said, "Little help like this makes the day better." That same day, I met my friend Clara at a local tea shop. She had just visited her in-laws and wanted to share a story. Their neighbors bring them fresh fruits from their gardens every visit. Clara said, "It's amazing how people in villages still practice this kind of generosity. They do not expect anything back. They just share what they have." I told her this is also a great way to practice English. It creates chances to say thank you, ask where the fruits came from, or talk about recipes. Saturday morning was sunny, so I visited the weekly farmers market. There were stalls with vegetables, homemade bread, honey, and even handmade soap. I stopped at a stand where a man named Jacob sold fresh honey. He said his wife takes care of the bees while he manages sales. I asked, "Do you both enjoy working with bees?" He smiled. "Yes, it is peaceful and rewarding. Plus, we meet many kind people here." We talked about harvesting honey and packaging it for the market. These conversations remind me that learning English isn't about long, complex sentences. It's about asking small questions that show real interest. Later, I went to a public library for a free weekend storytelling workshop. The instructor, Mrs. Parker, asked everyone to share a childhood memory. I told a story about my neighbor bringing fresh bread every Sunday. Another participant, Liam, shared how his father taught him to ride a bicycle and how they fell many times but laughed together. These simple, honest memories created a warm atmosphere. People spoke freely without worrying too much about mistakes. On Sunday afternoon, my friend Henry called for help moving boxes from his garage to his living room. While carrying them, we talked about organization. Henry said, "Sometimes we keep things we do not even use. But when we give them away, we feel lighter." That stuck with me because it applies to learning English too. Sharing what you know helps you remember it better. At evening, I went for a walk by the lake and saw a woman named Karen sketching the sunset. I said, "That looks beautiful." "Do you draw often?" she replied. "Yes, my husband and I enjoy sketching in the evenings. It helps us relax after a busy day." We talked about hobbies and how sharing them with neighbors can start new friendships. On Monday, I visited a stationery shop near the train station. I asked Mrs. Turner, the shopkeeper, "Could you help me find a strong envelope for documents?" She smiled and said, "Certainly. This section has the ones most people use." While she wrapped my purchase, we talked about her shop. Many students come during school season, and her husband sometimes helps when it's busy. This reminded me how small family businesses rely on teamwork and kindness. After leaving, I saw a man, Oliver, struggling with a large suitcase. I said, "Let me help you with that. It looks heavy." He thanked me and explained that he and his wife had just returned from visiting their daughter. We shared a few travel tips, and he mentioned how simple acts of help make trips more enjoyable. Later, I attended a workshop on time management at a community hall. The speaker, Mr. Williams, explained how he and his wife plan weekly tasks together to reduce stress. Participants shared tips too. Amanda, for example, prepares meals for the week on Sundays so they have more free evenings. I realized that conversations about daily routines include practical phrases like, "We try to plan ahead," or "It helps us save time." These are simple ways to use English naturally. The next morning I went for a jog and saw a couple planting flowers. Said, "The garden looks wonderful." Brian replied, "Thank you. We enjoy working together. It gives us fresh air and beautifies the street." They sometimes share plants with neighbors too. A small conversation grew into 10 minutes of gardening tips. In the afternoon, I visited a friend, Thomas, who had recently become a parent. He explained how he and his wife take turns during the night to rest a little. This showed me that teamwork and communication are key, and phrases like "we share the work" or "we help each other" appear naturally in real life. On Friday, I visited a farmer's cooperative to buy vegetables. Hannah, packing carrots, explained that she and her husband started it with neighbors to provide healthy food fairly. They also share recipes and ideas. Saturday afternoon, I joined a free home repair workshop. Mr. Brown taught us how to fix leaks and check wiring safely. He said he often teaches these skills with his wife to help neighbors. Afterward, I said, "These tips will be very useful." He smiled. "Share them with your neighbors." That is how knowledge spreads. Later in a park, I saw parents teaching children to ride bicycles. Kevin encouraged his daughter, "Keep your balance and look forward." Lisa told her son, "You are doing great." Just a little more small phrases like these: guide, support, and show care. Sunday morning, I helped my friend Rachel move to a new apartment. We talked about how moving can be stressful but exciting. She said, "I hope to invite neighbors for tea next week." It's a good way to start friendly connections. A simple invitation like, "Would you like to join us for tea?" can open the door to many conversations. In the afternoon, I visited a repair shop where Jack was fixing a bicycle. He and his wife often help children in the neighborhood, sometimes for free. We talked about how small services build trust in the community. Phrases like, "Let me check that for you," or "I can fix it quickly," create positive impressions. Looking back at the week, I realized that helping in a shop, guiding a stranger, painting a bench, sharing recipes, and supporting small businesses, none of these were planned. But each one became an opportunity to use English naturally. Every short question, polite offer, and kind reply helped build a connection. Let's start with Victor. He's an architect, married to Emma, and they have one young child. Victor used to work long hours, often staying late at the office to finish projects. He wanted to provide for his family, but he noticed his health was suffering, and he had little time for his wife and child. One evening, Emma said, "Victor, I know you work hard, but we also need you at home." We missed having dinner together. Victor realized that success isn't just about money or career achievements. It's also about making time for your loved ones. He started organizing his tasks better, delegating responsibilities to his team, and coming home earlier twice a week. Slowly, their evenings became happier. They cooked simple meals together, talked about their day, and played with their child. This small change improved not only his family life, but also his mood at work. His energy returned, and his creativity increased. This story teaches us that balance isn't found by working more hours. It's created by setting limits and making time for what truly matters. Now let's see how this applies to you. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by all the things you need to do? Studies, work, family responsibilities, and learning English can feel like too much at once. One helpful approach is to set clear priorities for the week. Ask yourself, what is the most important thing I want to achieve? Maybe it's completing a work project, spending quality time with family, or dedicating 2 hours to focused English practice. Once you know your top priorities, write them down and protect that time. A simple habit reduces stress and helps you make real progress. Here's another example. Sarah runs a small online store from home. She has 2 children and her husband works full-time. Sarah used to wake up late and start her day without a plan. By afternoon, she felt tired and hadn't finished her tasks. She decided to wake up 1 hour earlier, prepare a to-do list, and set 3 main tasks each day. She also learned to say no to unnecessary social visits or long phone calls. This gave her more control over her schedule. Sarah practiced English while doing simple activities, listening to podcasts while cooking, or repeating new words while folding laundry. Over a few months, her business improved. Her English vocabulary grew, and she still had evenings to sit with her family and share meals. Her story shows that time is often available if used wisely. Health is also important. David, a software developer, spent long hours at his computer. He felt back pain and constant tiredness. His wife suggested evening walks together. At first, he thought it was unnecessary, but after a week, he felt more energetic and slept better. Walking gave them time to talk without distractions, strengthening their relationship. Even a small, consistent habit like a 20-minute walk can have a big impact on your health, your relationships, and your overall productivity. Now let's talk about communication and relationships. Daniel and Sophia had been married for 5 years. They often argued because they didn't clearly communicate expectations. Sophia wanted Daniel to help more with chores, but never said it directly. Daniel thought he was doing enough, but didn't ask if she felt supported. One day they sat down and spoke honestly. Sophia said, "Daniel, I feel tired doing all the cleaning alone. Can we share the tasks?" Daniel replied, "I didn't realize you felt this way. Let's make a list and divide the work." From that week, Daniel cleaned the kitchen after dinner, and Sophia took care of laundry. Clear communication reduced their stress and gave them more time to enjoy each other. The lesson here is that communication is a key skill, not only in relationships, but also in learning English. If you don't express your needs clearly, misunderstandings grow. Think about your own life. Is there a part of the week that feels too busy? Could you talk with family, your partner, or your team at work to find a better rhythm? Could you create a new habit, like studying English for 15 minutes after breakfast or taking a walk in the evening? Small actions, repeated daily, build a strong foundation for personal and language growth. Now let's connect this to English conversations. Imagine a colleague asks, "How do you manage your time? You always seem organized." You could reply, "I plan my week in advance and focus on the most important tasks. I also make time for my family every evening." Or a friend might ask, "How?"
Well,
Do you keep improving your English while working full-time? You could say, "I listen to English podcasts while doing daily tasks and write down new words in a notebook." These are practical, natural sentences you can use. Cultural differences also affect how we see balance. In some cultures, long work hours are seen as dedication, while in others, family time is valued more. For example, in Japan, People often work late, but companies are now encouraging shorter hours for health and productivity. In some European countries, families eat dinner together at a fixed time and businesses respect that. Understanding these differences helps with global communication and inspires you to create your own rules. Useful phrases to set boundaries politely include, "I appreciate your invitation, but I already have plans with my family tonight," or "Let's reschedule our meeting tomorrow morning so I can finish my tasks today." Both are clear, kind, and respectful. Here's a reflection from my own routine. Every morning, I write down 3 small goals: one for work, one for personal growth, and one for relationships. It might be finishing a script, learning 5 new expressions, or calling a family member. This habit keeps me focused and gives me a sense of fulfillment. Things don't always go perfectly, but a simple plan provides direction. You can try it too. Take a small notebook and write your 3 main goals: one for English, one for your loved ones, and one for work or study. Complete them step by step. Over time, these little steps create big changes. On Monday morning, I visited a local cafe for coffee and breakfast. The cafe was moderately busy with people reading, working, or chatting. I noticed a man struggling to find a seat. I said, "Would you like to share this table? There is space here." His name was Samuel. He had just moved to this city with his wife and was looking for a quiet place to work. We started talking about local cafes, their atmosphere, and favorite spots to relax. Samuel mentioned his wife loved exploring bakeries on weekends, making small trips just to enjoy fresh pastries. We shared tips about local markets and fresh produce. Samuel said, "Markets open earlier here than in our previous city. It's convenient for fresh vegetables before work." I agreed, noting it's also a great way to interact with local sellers and practice English naturally. Even a few minutes of conversation with a stranger helps you become comfortable speaking, especially with small, practical topics. Samuel's wife encouraged him to speak to people whenever possible. One suggested starting with questions like, "Do you recommend this item?" or "How often do you get fresh bread?" Simple sentences like these can lead to longer conversations and build confidence. Later, I walked to the community library, which hosts workshops and discussion groups. I saw a young couple setting up chairs. I asked, "Do you need any help arranging these chairs?" The woman, Olivia, smiled. "Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you." While arranging chairs, we talked about an upcoming workshop on sustainable living. Olivia explained that she and her husband teach children how to care for the environment through simple habits like recycling and planting small gardens. This led to a conversation about how small, everyday actions make a big difference, both in community life and personal growth. During the workshop, participants shared experiences with sustainable practices. Peter mentioned installing a small rainwater collection system, saving water and helping his garden. Lisa shared that composting kitchen waste improved her backyard soil. Listening to these stories helped me practice understanding different accents, sentence structures, and vocabulary related to daily life. The discussion also emphasized patience and consistency when learning new skills. Whether gardening, cooking, or improving English fluency, after the workshop, Olivia invited me to see her community garden near the library. She and her husband planted tomatoes, herbs, and flowers. They involved neighbors and local children, helping everyone feel responsible for the plants. Her husband, James, added, "We also talk to visitors about the plants. It is a small way to practice English because we describe how each plant grows and what it needs." Combining learning with real-life activities makes practicing English natural. When you talk about something practical and familiar, the language sticks. The following morning, I went to a supermarket. I saw Thomas and Rachel struggling to reach items on a high shelf. I said, "Would you like me to grab that for you?" They thanked me, and we talked about shopping routines. Thomas mentioned planning weekly meals, which makes grocery shopping efficient. Rachel said, "It also helps us avoid unnecessary purchases and reduces waste." This reminded me how simple sentences like, "Can I help you?" or "Do you need assistance?" are effective in everyday interactions and make people feel appreciated. Later, I visited a local clinic to schedule a checkup. I met Daniel in the waiting area. We talked about the benefits of regular checkups. Daniel shared that he and his wife walk 30 minutes each morning and eat healthier meals together. He said, "It's easier to maintain habits when both of us participate. Even brief conversations in waiting rooms provide valuable practice for speaking naturally and confidently." On Thursday, I attended a small cooking workshop at the community center. Chef Emily taught simple, nutritious recipes. She said, "Cooking with your spouse or family helps everyone learn skills and spend quality time." Participants worked in pairs. I partnered with Laura. She shared that cooking with her husband helps them bond after work. We discussed ingredients, techniques, and meal preparation. Emily encouraged us to ask questions and explain steps in English. This was a great opportunity to practice descriptive language. Instructions and polite questions like, "Can you pass me the salt?" or "How long should I cook this?" These phrases are common in daily life and very useful for conversation. That evening, I went for a short walk near the river. I saw a man named Jack and his wife arranging benches along the riverside. I asked, "Do you need a hand with that?" They welcomed my help. While lifting some light furniture, we talked about the importance of public spaces. Jack explained that he and his wife enjoy organizing small community projects to make the area more welcoming. He said it's amazing how people appreciate small gestures. Even setting up a few benches makes a difference. This showed me how volunteering and helping others can provide opportunities to speak English naturally while building social connections. The next morning, I visited a bookstore to find a book on personal development. A young man named Ethan was browsing the same section. I asked, "Have you read any books by this author?" He replied, "Yes, I find them very motivating." I also enjoyed discussing the ideas with friends. We started talking about our favorite sections, how we apply the tips in daily life, and which ideas are most practical. Ethan mentioned that he and his wife sometimes try the techniques together, like planning goals for the week or organizing tasks. This reminded me that learning English isn't just about grammar or vocabulary. It's also about exchanging ideas, sharing experiences, and practicing expressions in meaningful contexts. Later that week, I took a short train trip to visit a friend in the nearby town. While waiting at the station, I noticed a couple, Henry and Olivia, looking for the ticket counter. I asked, "Do you need help finding the counter?" They said yes, and I guided them there. On the train, we talked about travel routines and tips for making trips easier. Henry explained that he and his wife pack meals for the journey to avoid searching for restaurants. Olivia mentioned that they enjoy learning a few local phrases in English to communicate with staff at different stations. This exchange reinforced the idea that practical conversations help you remember vocabulary more easily because you use it in real-life contexts. That afternoon, I joined a neighborhood cleanup event near a park. A man named Robert and his wife Linda were collecting trash along a walking path. I asked, "Can I help with these bags?" They welcomed my assistance. While picking up litter, Robert shared that he and Linda involved their children in community work, teaching responsibility and teamwork. Linda added, "It's also a way to practice English with our kids because we describe what we are doing and ask questions." This story reminded me that learning English can happen in everyday actions, not just in classrooms or textbooks. On Saturday morning, I visited a local bakery to pick up fresh bread. I noticed a woman named Hannah selecting pastries. I said, "Would you like me to help you carry these?" She thanked me and mentioned that she and her husband enjoyed trying new recipes at home using ingredients from the bakery. We talked about baking tips, favorite flavors, and how sharing food strengthens family bonds. Later that afternoon, I attended a workshop at the community center about basic home maintenance. The instructor, Mr. Brown, demonstrated simple repairs like fixing a leaky faucet or adjusting door hinges. He encouraged participants to ask questions and explain steps in English. During a practical session, I worked with a woman named Clara. She and her husband often perform small repairs at home together, and this session gave them new ideas. We practiced phrases such as, "Can you hold this for me?" and "Which tool should I use next?" These simple sentences are excellent for improving fluency because they are simple, useful, and repeatable. Sunday morning, I took a walk by the riverside and saw a couple teaching their children to ride bicycles. I said, "It looks like fun. Do they enjoy it?" Father replied, "Yes, it's their favorite weekend activity." The mother added, "It's a way for us to spend time together as a family while staying active." We talked about the importance of hobbies and outdoor activities for physical and mental health. This was another opportunity to practice natural English phrases and understand how people discuss routines and family life. In the evening, I visited my friend Daniel, who was organizing his home office with his wife. They were sorting files and documents to improve efficiency. I said, "It looks like you have a lot to organize. Can I help?" Daniel smiled and said, "Yes, that would be great." While sorting papers, we discussed tips for staying organized and prioritizing tasks. His wife Sophia added that small steps every day make it easier to manage work without stress. On Monday morning, I visited the local library to return a few books and borrow something new. The library was peaceful, with sunlight streaming through large windows and the quiet rustle of pages turning. As I walked past the shelves, I noticed a man struggling to reach a book on a higher shelf. I asked, "Would you like me to help you get it?" He smiled and said, "Yes, please. Thank you." His name was Jonathan, and he explained that he had recently moved to the city with his wife and was exploring local libraries. While handing him the book, we began a conversation about favorite authors and genres. He mentioned that he and his wife enjoy mystery novels and often read together in the evenings. One suggested a few titles I had recently read, and he seemed excited to try them. This small interaction reminded me that sharing simple tips or opinions in English can spark friendly conversations and help you practice naturally. After returning my books, I stopped by a nearby cafe for a quick snack. The cafe had a warm atmosphere, and the barista Olivia greeted me politely. I asked, "Could you recommend a good pastry with coffee?" She suggested a croissant filled with almond paste. While she prepared my order, we talked about the best combinations of coffee and pastries. Olivia mentioned that she and her husband often experiment with new recipes at home and sometimes bring them to the cafe for friends to try. I found this conversation interesting because it provided practical vocabulary for talking about food, taste and preferences, common topics in everyday English. Later that morning, I visited a local market to buy fresh vegetables and fruits. While selecting apples, I noticed a man named Patrick arranging tomatoes. I asked, "Are these tomatoes fresh today?" He replied, "Yes. They arrived this morning." My wife helps me with deliveries, and we always make sure the produce is fresh. We talked about the different types of fruits and vegetables, their uses, and how to select the best ones. Patrick mentioned that his wife sometimes prepares small tasting samples for customers, which encourages them to try new items. This small exchange reminded me that practical conversations in English often revolve around daily needs and shared interests. It's a great way to spend time together and stay active, a father said while teaching his child to ride a bike. His wife joined us and added that rotating activities like this keeps children motivated. This conversation provided a natural setting to practice English vocabulary related to sports, family activities, and encouragement. That afternoon, I attended a workshop on home organization. The instructor, Mrs. Allen, explained methods to sort documents, organize kitchen spaces, and maintain tidy living areas. A participant, Clara, mentioned that she and her husband follow these tips to save time and reduce stress at home. We discussed practical sentences such as, "Could you hand me that folder?" or "Where should I place this item?" These phrases are highly applicable in daily life and help improve conversational fluency. On Monday morning, I visited the nearby community center to join a short workshop on practical cooking skills. The center was quiet, but a few people had already arrived. I noticed a couple, Daniel and Maria, arranging utensils on the tables. I asked, "Do you need any help setting up?" He smiled and said, "Yes, that would be very helpful." While placing bowls and knives on the table, we started talking about meal preparation. Daniel mentioned that he and his wife often plan weekly meals together to save time and eat healthily. Maria added, "We also involve our children by asking them to help with small tasks like washing vegetables or mixing ingredients." This conversation reminded me that practical English comes alive in real situations where people collaborate and share responsibilities. Later that morning, the instructor, Mrs. Johnson, explained how to make simple yet nutritious meals using seasonal ingredients. She encouraged participants to ask questions and interact in English while cooking. I partnered with a woman named Lucy. She explained that she and her husband like to try new recipes on weekends, experimenting with flavors from different countries. While chopping vegetables, we practiced phrases such as, "Could you pass me the knife?" "How long should I simmer the sauce?" These phrases are extremely useful in everyday conversation because they are clear, polite, and repeatable. After the workshop, I went to a small bookshop nearby to pick up a novel I had been wanting to read. The shop owner, Mr. Clark, greeted me and asked if I needed recommendations. I said yes. I'm looking for something engaging and practical for daily life situations. He suggested a book that included dialogues and real-life scenarios. While browsing, I met a couple, Thomas and Emma, who were discussing the same book. They mentioned that they liked reading together in the evenings and sometimes discuss vocabulary and expressions to improve their English. This interaction showed me that reading can be both enjoyable and educational, especially when it involves sharing insights with others. In the afternoon, I visited a local park where a small volunteer group was planting flowers and organizing the garden area. I saw a couple, Mark and Jennifer, picking up tools and soil bags. I asked, "Would you like some help with this?" They nodded and explained that they regularly volunteer to maintain the park because it benefits the neighborhood and provides a healthy space for families. While working together, we exchanged phrases like, "Could you hold this bag for a moment? Where should I plant the seedling?" Practical English phrases like these are often repeated in everyday interactions and are excellent for improving fluency. Later that day, I attended a seminar at the community hall on time management and productivity. The speaker, Mr. Anderson, shared techniques for organizing daily routines, including work, family, and personal goals. He explained that he and his wife divide household responsibilities to maintain balance and reduce stress. During the Q&A session, participants shared their experiences. One woman, Sarah, mentioned that she plans her meals cleaning schedule and English practice sessions with her husband. Another participant, Peter, explained that setting clear priorities each morning helps him complete tasks efficiently. Listening to these discussions offered real-life examples of expressions like, "We try to plan ahead, and it helps us stay organized." On Tuesday morning, I went to a nearby pharmacy to pick up vitamins. While waiting, I noticed a man, Robert, looking unsure about which product to choose. I asked, "Would you like some advice?" He said yes, and we began a conversation about daily health routines. Robert mentioned that he and his wife regularly check labels, compare options, and discuss which products are suitable for their needs. Phrases like, "Which one is best for daily use?" and "How often should I take this?" are very useful in English because they are clear and commonly used in practical conversations. In the afternoon, I visited a local bakery to buy bread for the week. A couple, Nathan and Lucy, were ahead of me in line, choosing pastries. I offered to carry a tray for them to the counter, and they welcomed the help. We began talking about favorite flavors, types of bread, and simple cooking techniques at home. Nathan mentioned that he and his wife enjoyed baking as a weekend hobby and sometimes share their creations with friends. This interaction demonstrated how simple English phrases like, "Would you like me to help?" or "Which flavor do you recommend?" can create friendly conversations and practice opportunities. Later that afternoon, I attended a small art class at a community center. The instructor, Mrs. Blake, was demonstrating basic painting techniques. A couple, Henry and Emma, were also participating. I introduced myself, and we started sharing our experiences with painting at home. Henry explained that he and his wife enjoy working on creative projects together, often making decorations for their home. Emma added that they discuss ideas, select colors, and plan each project step by step. We practiced phrases like, "Could you pass me the brush? What color should I use next?" These phrases are practical, polite, and commonly used in English conversation. Later that day, I visited a local library to borrow some books. A couple, Jonathan and Rachel, were discussing the schedule for upcoming reading events. Jonathan explained that he and his wife attend these events to practice English while sharing opinions on different topics. Rachel added that summarizing stories and asking questions aloud helps improve comprehension. Engaging in library discussions provides excellent listening practice and reinforces the use of complete sentences in English. In the early evening, I went for a walk in a neighborhood park. I noticed a father, Kevin, teaching his son how to play basketball. I asked, "It looks like he's improving quickly. How long have you been practicing?" Kevin explained that they practice together several times a week to improve skills and enjoy quality family time. His wife added that rotating activities and setting small goals keeps their child motivated. Conversations like these provide learners with practical vocabulary for sports, family activities, and encouragement. During dinner, I visited a small restaurant to try a new dish. I met a couple, Nathan and Lucy, who were celebrating a personal achievement. I complimented their choice of dishes, and we began discussing cooking techniques, flavors, and weekend routines. Nathan mentioned that he and his wife enjoy experimenting with new recipes at home and occasionally invite friends to try them. These types of interactions help learners practice polite expressions, descriptive language, and everyday English vocabulary. The next day, I attended a small seminar on personal productivity. The speaker, Mr. Anderson, discussed organizing tasks, balancing work and home responsibilities, and setting achievable goals. Participants shared their experiences. Sarah explained that she and her husband schedule English study sessions along with household chores to maintain a balanced routine. Peter mentioned that setting priorities each morning helps him complete tasks efficiently. Listening to these examples reinforces natural English expressions used to describe routines and habits. Later, I visited a bakery to pick up fresh bread for the week. A couple, Daniel and Emily, were selecting pastries. I offered to carry a tray to the counter, and we began a conversation about favorite flavors and baking tips. Emily explained that she and her husband enjoy experimenting with recipes and sharing them with friends. This interaction provided an opportunity to practice polite phrases, descriptive language, and everyday English vocabulary in context. In the afternoon, I joined a yoga class at a nearby gym. A couple, Michael and Laura, were stretching before the session. I asked, "Do you practice yoga regularly?" Michael replied, "Yes, it helps us stay fit and relax together." Laura added that practicing at home occasionally helps them maintain consistency. Discussing fitness routines gives learners vocabulary for activities, habits, and polite questions about routines. Later that evening, I participated in a community volunteering project at a neighborhood park. A couple, Jacob and Olivia, were planting small trees and flowers. I asked, "Can I help with the planting?" They welcomed me and shared tips about plant care. Jacob mentioned that he and his wife involved their children to teach responsibility while practicing English vocabulary. Olivia added that labeling plants in English is a fun way to remember terms. These practical interactions provide natural listening and speaking practice. During a weekend trip to a local art studio, I attended a painting class. The instructor, Mrs. Blake, demonstrated basic techniques, and a couple, Henry and Emma, were also participating. We discussed home art projects, creative planning, and sharing tasks. Phrases like, "Could you pass me the palette?" or "Which color do you suggest next?" practical and useful for everyday English. Later that day, I visited a small electronics store. The owner, Mr. Clark, explained appliance features to customers. A young couple, Ethan and Sarah, had questions about installation. I assisted them by explaining simple steps. Ethan mentioned that he and his wife research products together for better decision-making. Discussing instructions, comparisons, and daily routines in English reinforces listening and speaking skills. In the evening, I went for a walk along the river. I noticed a father, Brian, teaching his daughter to row a small boat. I asked, "It looks challenging. How long has she been learning?" Brian explained that they practice regularly to improve skills and spend quality time together. His wife added that alternating activities keeps their child engaged. Conversations about family activities and sports provide useful vocabulary for encouragement, routines, and polite questions. I decided to start the morning by visiting a small local cafe to enjoy a cup of tea and observe the morning routine. As I entered, I noticed a man named Samuel arranging tables and chairs with his wife. I asked, "Do you need any help with this?" He smiled and replied, "That would be great. Thank you." While helping them, we started talking about the cafe's daily operations. Samuel explained that he and his wife wake up early to prepare fresh pastries and coffee for customers. He mentioned that they enjoy experimenting with new flavors together and occasionally introduce seasonal items. Discussing everyday tasks like running a cafe provides practical English vocabulary such as, "Could you move this chair?" and "Which table should I set next?" After finishing my tea, I walked to a nearby farmer's market to buy fresh vegetables. A couple, Daniel and Margaret, were selecting tomatoes and peppers. I asked, "Are these fresh from today's delivery?" They replied that they had just arrived and that they often check quality together before buying. We discussed different ways to store vegetables and maintain freshness. Daniel mentioned that he and Margaret enjoy cooking meals together, trying recipes from different cultures. This conversation introduced me to phrases like, "Which one is the ripest?" and "How many should we get?" which are useful in everyday shopping conversations. Later in the morning, I visited a small library to browse new books. A man named Andrew was sorting returned books with his wife. I asked, "Are you organizing these for the shelves?" He explained that they volunteer to keep the library neat and that working together allows them to practice English. We talked about our favorite authors and genres. Andrew mentioned that he and his wife often read the same book and discuss it to improve comprehension. Useful phrases like, "Have you read this author before?" and "Which book did you enjoy the most?" are great for everyday English practice. As we've seen throughout this week, English learning isn't just about studying textbooks or memorizing grammar rules. It comes alive in everyday interactions. Whether you're helping someone at a cafe, volunteering in a park, shopping at a market, or joining a workshop, every conversation, every question, every small task provides a natural opportunity to practice listening, speaking, and using practical vocabulary. Engaging with real people in real-life situations helps you build confidence, develop fluency, and make English a part of your daily life. Remember, learning English is about participation, curiosity, and repetition. The more you interact, ask questions, and use polite phrases in context, the more natural and effortless English becomes. So, take what you've learned today and start noticing these opportunities around you, at home, in your neighborhood, or in your community. Every small conversation is a step forward. Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, English without limit is about making English a living part of your life. Till next time, I'm Julia, and I'll see you in our next episode.